is Carrie, and I am one of the PTN facilitators in Tustin Unified School District. And it's my pleasure to introduce Susan Davidson, a fabulous teacher in Tustin. She's going to be presenting on empowering readers to become complex thinkers.
Well, the reason that I'm asking is
so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and man the chat. So if you have questions, you can put it in the chat and I'll get them to you, the answers to you as quickly as possible. And then I'll be putting her resources in the chat at the end of the presentation. All right.
Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad that you're here on a Saturday morning. And we're going to just go ahead and get started. We have a very short amount of time. So I just want to start by saying the idea of this session and really these resources came out of the frustration of the pandemic and distance learning last year, where we found kids, even though we continued the workshop, we found kids coming back to school kind of disengaged, and was really looking for a way that I could help them find more interest in reading and also to help develop conversation amongst children with book clubs. So I'm going to share my screen with you to show you what the cards actually look like. Oops, let me go back. I forgot to go from the beginning. Let me go back to the beginning. Here we go. All right, so I have two things I want to share with you today. The first is bands of text complexity cards, and the other is a tool that's available, actually has been out for quite a while, for supporting and moving readers up levels. And I like to use these two together because I think—
Sorry, can you present? Oh, we're not sharing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can do that. That way you guys can all see what I'm doing, all right? So let me go here, hold on. I thought I pushed it, but I guess I didn't. There we go. Got it?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So the two things we're talking about, the first one is bands of text complexity cards. The second one is a tool for supporting moving readers up levels. And both of these resources can be found on Teachers College website, the Reading Writing Project website, and also through Heinemann. So I'll show you how to access those at the end of this session today. So these are what band of text complexity cards are. They're a set of 5 different cards in band levels. So for instance, this one is band K, L, and M. And they're all the same as far as the skills that we're looking at. So they all are about character, setting, problem, conflict, lessons and themes, plot structure, and figurative language, imagery, and symbolism, just at different levels. So KLM is the first level, and typically this would be maybe around 3rd grade, I guess, second and 3rd grade. These are available to 3rd grade teachers in the Heinemann website. Is that me or is that something else?
Nope, I got it. Sorry.
Okay, thanks. And so this is the first one. The second one looks like this. So it looks like the same, except when you start reading more deeply into it, you'll see that it's now ramping up the level a little bit more to match the types of strategies that students will need in order to access the books at this level. They have separated out the NOP and the Q because their research found that these are the places where kids get stuck, at this level Q and back at the earlier card at the level M. So the jump from M to N and then the jump from Q to R are places that they need a little bit more instruction. They need to hold on to everything they're doing at those earlier levels and then add some more on, which we'll get to when we talk about the tool. But then the same thing for RST, UVW, and then XYZ. So some of the ways that I've used the cards and the ways that they suggest using the cards is through interactive read aloud to introduce them to students. Well, you don't have to do that. I just found it to be a little bit more beneficial because then they were familiar with it. They were familiar with the work that they do, that they'll be doing when they get the cards themselves. And I don't tell them that you're gonna get these cards. I just do it like this is part of our read aloud. And then what I do is I will, like for example, here's Home of the Brave. When I was reading this book, I had kids who had not read Tiger Rising, which is part of the 4th grade curriculum in reading. Because of the distance learning last year, not all the teachers did the read aloud. So I found that they were really struggling with understanding symbolism. So I used, this book is a little bit more nuanced with symbolisms, but I did use that book to try and flesh some of that out. I also used these cards to help with character. So I would model it, and then I would ask them to look for other parts in the book and give me a quiet thumbs up when they found something in the book, and then we would stop and talk about it. You can also use it in your conferring time with students in small group instruction, maybe taking one of the cards and even just one, like problem and conflict, maybe just starting with that one, taking that one and just working with kids that need that support in their small group instruction time. The way I like to use it is in partnerships or book clubs. Book clubs are an absolute essential part of my reading instruction because I just can't get to everybody, and the book clubs help them keep each other accountable, and they like that community discussion that they get. They like talking with their friends about the books that they're reading. And of course, choosing really delicious books is helpful for that as well. And then another idea on the cards is to think about using one strand and doing an inquiry study through that strand. So maybe giving the kids 3 cards of problem and conflict or plot structure, and having them look at how it changes over the different cards. So here's an example of that. We have plot structure at the KLM level, and then also at the NOP, and then the the RST. And I would use more than 2 or 3 cards at a time. It's overwhelming, even if they're high readers. But I think it's best to have them look at their own writing or think about their own talking and say, where do you see yourselves on these 3 cards? Like, where do you find your writing to be, or where do you find your discussions to be? And then they'll often say, well, we're just describing the problems. And so, well, then let's see, which one do you think would be a stronger type of discussion to have or jot to have? And then they can look through here and notice the difference between them. And that just brings to their attention the kind of work that they could be doing. So these are really helpful. And then another way that they can be used, I'm going to go into a different share. Oops. This is to think about them through within the complexity across the different cards. So we talked earlier about maybe just looking at plot structure across in one, so like the inquiry in one strand, but you can also see how they're connected by looking in the different strands as well. So for example, starting with setting, which is usually where the books will start in the stories, setting and character, it talks about noticing how the setting shapes or reflects the character. And then over here, it's talking about how the characters are different on the inside or outside, and then helping them to understand that a little bit more. So you can see how one can influence the other. And then plot structure, here they're talking about how problems and issues are resolved, but they're also looking at the plot, a problem and conflict. They're looking at those being issues. So it talks about thinking about problems that may have already existed before and shows them different parts of the story. And then we're looking at those problems and how they can become issues that are either hidden or how they emerge across the story. So you can use these together as well. And then they're also really good for you as a reader, as a teacher, to be thinking, what kinds of work should my kids be doing, or even planning a read aloud instruction as well. So they're really helpful. I have them color coded. So this is all my RST level. They recommend that you not give the kids the band level that's on the cards, but that you, because they don't want them thinking of themselves as that kind of that level reader, but just more thinking about the work, because I might have somebody that's reading RST, but they're doing some work at KLM. So getting them to move up, just as we would with other tools, this is a helpful resource to use. And then the other thing I wanted to share with you is the tool for moving students up levels. So, let's see right here. So this is a tool for supporting moving readers up levels. I use this with my text complexity card, band complexity cards, because it kind of helps me to understand what questions I can ask or the thinking I might want them to do in a more structured or systematic way. So it starts at level A, B, but I include them in my conferring notebook with my cards. So this is my KLM card. So right behind that, I have the coaching prompts and questions with these tools. And what I just do to help me a little bit is I note what the level is, skill level is of this, because it's not always up there, easy for me to see. And then I say, well, what kind of work is this that the coaching prompts are asking to do? So what is the skill? Just kind of in general, because a lot of them do overlap, but just in general, what's the skill I'm looking for? And then if I'm conferring with someone and I'm seeing that they're struggling in one area, like maybe they're struggling with plot structure or with character, I've got 2 resources here that I can look at quickly to support that. And so they have, it's just like in the Saravala book, they have like make connections from an earlier part to what you're reading now. So they have prompts that you can give kids that are directed that they can implement right away. And there are even little takeaways that you can leave them on Post-its when they're working in that. I also like to write the students' names in here that are working maybe on this one thing, just to help me keep track of it. Just a little organization tip. But they have it at all different levels. And then you notice I had said earlier about the KL and then the M, how it separates out. So at level M, it's a little bit more nuanced, because here they're expecting them to use the strategies or the skills from KL as well. But these are some things that you can add on to help then move them up. So just super helpful tools. I keep them in my notebook so that they're easy and they're ready for me when I'm conferring with kids. Okay, so let's go on. We've already talked about, oops, why is this not moving? There you go. We've talked about bands and text complexity. We've talked about the tools for supporting readers as they move up. This is just a slide I put in there because you're getting this to kind of help you see this is what this tool is about, the tool for supporting and moving readers up. And then this is where you can find them. So if you have the units of study from Heinemann, you can access them by going to the Heinemann.com account and then going into your resources and finding your grade level. And then this is at the general information, which is at the top. And then you can see both of them underneath this. You have the illustrated bands and you also have the coaching prompts and questions. In the Teachers College website, you can go in through the resources. So these are hot linked as well. So if you, in the slideshow, you can just click these on. But I would recommend if you haven't used this website before, you haven't seen the new one, or you haven't joined them, you can get an account with Teachers College and then it opens up a few more resources. And I would do that. It's free and you just have to, they just want to make sure you're a teacher, I think. And then go to the resources, and from there, you'll click Guiding Readers Up Levels and then Curricular Materials. If you click on that, this will pop up and it's the K to Z bands of text complexity illustrated cards. And then I think right above that is the tool for supporting readers moving up levels. So easy to find and easy to use. Any questions that I can be helpful in answering?
There were no questions in the chat. I did just put the resources in the chat for you all, so make sure you grab those.
Oh, you know, one thing I think I need to expand on a little bit more. Let me go ahead and go into my document camera. I think I forgot to do that. The way that I organize them. So with my students, I keep them in baggies. And so, for example, this is one group, and I just write their names on it because they they keep them in a place in my classroom, but I have them color coded for the level. So this is my NOPQ level. And I just have all the cards copied onto a piece of colored paper, and then I laminate them. And then I also have these for the students as well. So they can, if they're choosing to work on one of these skills in their writing or in their discussion, they can take one of these and glue it into their notebook. So I have a student that did that. Here's where she put it. She was reading wholes, and so she wanted to work on characters and setting and how they were related. And so I can see her jots right here, and in reading them, it looks like she's wanting to work on here, but on these two things, but she needs a little bit more support. So I can see right away that she's being very superficial. And so how can I get her to go a little bit more deeply? Well, this one's talking about how they feel on the outside that fits what they're feeling on the inside, and then to reflect on the conflict. So she could have pulled a conflict card as well to help her with that. But then she chose setting. So if I'm looking at her setting, she talks about the setting, but she really doesn't talk about its effect on the character. So those are just some little things that I might work with her on to get that to flesh out a little bit more. But putting them in their reader's notebook is really helpful. Gives them a place to start. And then just like anything, you want to not overdo it. So I give them to them and in their book clubs. And then when they're in nonfiction, they're not using them anymore. They don't have them for nonfiction, although you can create them, but they don't have them for nonfiction. So I just took them away, and they're actually wanting to get back into them. They were asked if we could they can start working on the cards again because they love them. And so we'll do that when we start our fantasy unit in just another week or two. If they're already here, ready to go, I don't have to prep anything else. And then I have the different colors. These are all my different colors. I have RST, and then I have the pink for my UVW group. Oh, here's my pink. This is my UVW group. And they're all ready to go. Kids' names on them. I heard about these at the reunion for Teachers College that was back in like September, October, and I couldn't wait to get started with them. So I hope you enjoy them as much as I do.
And we have a whopping 3 minutes for questions. Any questions?
I go fast.
Susan, thank you very much. If anyone else doesn't have a question, a comment that I have is I really think it's powerful, that one slide when you have the plot and you show from the beginning to the end, like the complexities of plot. That helps me as an educator to kind of know where I'm going with that and how I can help students. So I thought that was a super powerful way to approach it.
You're talking about this one here. Whoops, this one.
Yeah, I like seeing
You
that.
can yeah, and you can do it with any of them, or you can look within one band as well. So you can look at one strand, you can look at one band, and you can have kids do the work too. And one other thing that I often will do is I'll see kids really focus on one thing in book after book after book. And so I'll say, well, what have you as a group not looked at? Because sometimes what they'll do is they'll each take a different card and decide to talk about that, and they'll do their reading focusing on that because they kind of feel like this is coming up in the book. And then so after they do a little bit of that work, we also talk about what things haven't you looked at. And inevitably it's always figurative language because that's a little bit tricky for them at this age. They're just being introduced to it, even though it's been existing in their books for a while. So often they can set goals that way. And then they will take one of the little cards, they'll put it in their reader's notebook and kind of focus their reading in that direction, or look back at earlier notes or look back in the reading to support the work that's being asked of that card.
And someone has a question about our Heinemann resources free, and they are if you have the book. Like, so if you have the units of study and you register units of study, you'll be able to see where, like how she showed you to get there.
Yeah, but it's also in Teachers College. When I first wrote up the description for this session, I wasn't aware that they were there because I know that they're new, but I've only seen them in Heinemann. So I'd watched a YouTube on somebody doing something completely unrelated, and she showed that website, and so I just went looking for it and I found them there. So in this, there actually are, I just walk you through how to find it, and they're, like I said, it's hot linked, so you can just click on this and it'll take you there. Super easy, and that's free. just log in, create a login. But I think a lot of things are free, even if you're not signed up with them.
All right, and unfortunately, that is the end of our session. I believe we have another whopping 5 minutes before you go to keynote part 2. So thank you very much for attending, and I just put the resources again in the chat in case anyone missed it.
And thank you, Carrie and Angela, as well.
Of course, thank you, Susan. Appreciate it.